subscribe to the channel. It's easy and fast.
7 years? That's how long Michael had been wearing that ring on his finger. 7 years beside Jessica, the woman he'd met at a real estate convention in Denver when she was still a junior agent and already talked like she owned the city. He'd fallen in love with exactly that. Her determination, the way she refused to accept anything less than she deserved. At 34, Michael had what many would consider an enviable life. Steady job as a project manager at a tech startup in Austin, Texas. A nice townhouse in a developing neighborhood, 2 cars paid off. Jessica had flourished too, becoming the head of sales at a luxury real estate firm. They didn't have kids yet, but they talked about it. "When we're more stable," she always said. But lately, something had changed. Michael noticed it first in the small details. The good morning kiss became quicker, almost automatic. Conversations at the dinner table dwindled to mechanical reports of the day. She started sleeping, turned to the opposite side of the bed, and when he tried to hug her, he felt her body stiffen slightly. "Is everything okay?" he asked on a Thursday night while she scrolled through her phone on the couch. "Everything's fine," she replied without looking up. "Why? You seem distant," Jessica sighed. "Michael, I'm just tired. Don't turn everything into drama." He let it go. But the feeling that something was wrong only grew. The cracks in their marriage started showing in ways Michael couldn't ignore anymore. Jessica began working late more often, coming home after 9 p.m., smelling of expensive wine and offering vague explanations about client dinners. Her laugh, once so familiar and warm, now felt forced when she was around him, mechanical, like she was performing the role of a happy wife rather than being one. On weekends, she'd spend hours at the gym, something she'd never been particularly passionate about before. Michael tried to join her once, suggesting they could work out together like they used to during their first year of marriage. "I need this time for myself," she'd said, not meeting his eyes. "You understand, right?" He wanted to understand. God, he tried. But every attempt to reconnect felt like reaching for smoke. Movie nights became her scrolling through her phone while half watching whatever he'd chosen. Their once adventurous sex life had become perfunctory, scheduled, almost obligatory. And the way she looked at him, or rather didn't look at him, made Michael feel like he was slowly disappearing. It was on a Saturday morning that the first crack became impossible to ignore. Michael woke up early as always and made coffee. When he went to call Jessica, he saw her phone lit up on the nightstand. A notification. He wasn't the type to go through anyone's phone, much less his wife's, but the name on the screen made him freeze. Brandon. The message read, "You deserve someone who truly appreciates you." Michael's heart raced. Brandon, her ex-colleague from the previous firm, the guy who always appeared in her stories with a tone of admiration that Michael pretended not to notice. "Who's texting you so early?" he asked when she woke up. Jessica grabbed the phone too quickly. "Nobody. Work stuff." "Work? On Saturday? Michael, please." Her voice had a new impatience. "Are you going to start?" "Start what?" "I just asked." "You're suffocating me, you know that." She got out of bed. "I can't even breathe without you hovering." The argument ended with her locked in the bathroom and Michael staring at his own reflection in the living room window, not understanding when he'd become the villain. In the following days, he began noticing more things. Instagram posts with phrases about deserving more, not settling for crumbs, solo photos that didn't exist before, and always that distance, that look that seemed to pass through him as if he wasn't there. One evening, Michael came home from work to find Jessica in the kitchen pouring herself a glass of wine. It was only 6 p.m. She rarely drank on weekdays. "Rough day?" he asked, setting his laptop bag down. "You could say that." She took a long sip, her back to him. "Want to talk about it?" "Not really." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Michael tried again. "Jess, I feel like we're roommates, not husband and wife. When did we stop talking?" She turned to face him then, and there was something in her eyes he'd never seen before. Not anger. Something colder. "Calculation, maybe. Maybe we talk too much about nothing," she said. "Maybe I'm just tired of the same conversations, the same routine, the same everything. What does that mean?" "It means," she stopped herself, took another sip. "Never mind. No, say it. What does it mean? Jessica set her glass down with a sharp click. It means maybe I'm wondering if there's something more out there. Someone more! The words hung in the air like poison. Michael felt his chest tighten. Someone more than me? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence confirmed everything. Until one night, after another senseless argument, Jessica dropped it. Maybe I'm just wondering if there's someone better for me out there. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. I need some time, Jessica said the following Friday. I'm going away for the weekend, alone. Michael felt the ground disappear. Alone where? Colorado. A mountain resort a friend recommended. I need to think. Think about what, Jessica? Our marriage? She looked away. About me, about us, about everything. And I can't come with you? That's exactly the point, Michael. I need space. She left Saturday morning with a small suitcase and a cold kiss on the cheek. Michael stayed alone in the townhouse, the silence echoing like a premonition. He tried to distract himself. Watched movies he couldn't follow, scrolled through his phone seeing nothing. And then, in an impulse he didn't fully understand himself, he grabbed her iPad that was on the coffee table. She always left it logged into Instagram. Michael had never looked before. But now something compelled him. He opened the direct messages, and there it was, Brandon. Weeks of conversations, compliments, provocations, plans, and then the confirmation, can't wait to see you this weekend. It'll be just ours. Michael read and reread. His hands trembled. His chest burned. He wanted to scream, break something, call her and blow everything up. But he didn't do any of that. He closed the iPad, took a deep breath. And something inside him changed at that moment. The weekend crawled by like torture. Michael barely slept. He'd lie in their bed. His bed now, it felt like, staring at the ceiling, imagining what she was doing, who she was with, what they were saying to each other. The images haunted him, unwanted and intrusive. Saturday night, he almost called her. His finger hovered over her name in his contacts for a full minute before he locked his phone and threw it on the couch. What would he even say? He had no proof except messages that could be explained away. And part of him, the part that still loved her desperately, didn't want confirmation. By Sunday afternoon, Michael had made a decision. He wouldn't confront her with what he'd found. Not yet. Instead, he would watch, wait, and more importantly, he would start focusing on himself for the first time in years. When Jessica returned Sunday night, she was different, lighter, almost radiant. How was it? Michael asked, his voice neutral. It was good. I managed to rest. That's good. She looked at him suspiciously. That's it? You're not going to ask anything else? What do you want me to ask? Jessica seemed disconcerted but didn't insist. She went to shower. Michael went back to the iPad. He needed to be sure, even though he already knew. More messages, photos, selfies of the two of them at the resort. A short video where she laughed in a way she hadn't laughed with him in months. The pain was physical, like each message was a blade. But he didn't cry, didn't confront. He saved everything. In the following days, Michael began to change. Not explosively, but silently. He woke up earlier, went back to the gym, something he'd abandoned years ago. Called friends he hadn't seen in a long time. Bought new clothes. Got a better haircut. Started reading books on self-improvement and stoicism. He began meal prepping, taking control of his nutrition. Started a side project he'd been putting off, a mobile app idea he'd sketched out years ago but never pursued. Every morning, he'd look in the mirror and barely recognize the man staring back. Not because he looked so different yet, but because his eyes had changed. There was determination there, purpose. You're different, Jessica commented one night. Different how? I don't know, more distant? Michael smiled without humor. Funny you should say that. At work, people noticed too. His boss commented on his renewed energy. A colleague asked if he'd lost weight. Michael's best friend Tyler called him out of the blue. Dude, what's going on? You've been hitting me up more in the past 2 weeks than in the past 2 years. Michael almost told him everything. Almost. But something held him back. This was his journey now, his transformation. And he didn't want anyone's pity or advice to derail it. 3 weeks later, Michael was a different man. Not for her, for himself. Jessica noticed. She tried to get closer a few times, but something had changed in the dynamic. He no longer chased, Didn't ask where she was. Didn't beg for attention. "You're going out a lot," she commented one night while he got ready to meet some friends. "I am. You don't even invite me anymore." Michael stopped in the middle of the living room and looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in weeks. "You wanted space, remember? I'm giving it, but not like this. Like what then?" Jessica didn't know how to answer. He left, she stayed. Alone in the townhouse, for the first time tasting her own medicine. The shift in power was palpable. Jessica started texting him more, asking about his day, trying to initiate conversations. Michael responded, but briefly, cordially. He was polite, but detached. It drove her crazy. One night, she made his favorite meal, homemade lasagna, garlic bread, the works. Something she hadn't done in over a year. Michael came home from the gym to find the table set, candles lit. "What's this?" he asked. "I thought we could have a nice dinner, like we used to." Michael showered and joined her at the table. The food was delicious. The conversation was stilted. Jessica kept trying to engage him, asking questions, laughing too loudly at things that weren't particularly funny. Michael watched her performance with a kind of detached curiosity. "Michael, I miss us," she said finally, reaching across the table to touch his hand. He looked down at her hand on his, then back up at her face. "Do you miss us? Or do you miss having someone you can count on?" "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I think you've been taking me for granted. And maybe now that I'm not as available, you're remembering what you had. That's not fair, isn't it?" He pulled his hand away gently. "Jessica, when was the last time you asked me about my dreams? My goals, what I wanted out of life?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. Nothing came out. "Exactly," Michael said, standing up. "Thanks for dinner." "It was great." He went to the home office and closed the door, leaving her alone at the table with her thoughts. It was Brandon who ended things with her. 2 weeks later, "I don't want anything serious," he told her over the phone. "I thought you understood that." Jessica came home destroyed. Michael was in the living room reading a book on Stoicism, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. "We need to talk," she said, her voice broken. "About?" "About us, about—" "I made a mistake, Michael." He closed the book slowly. "Making a mistake is forgetting to buy milk. What you did was make a choice." I was confused. "No, you were being selfish." His voice was low but firm. "You used me as a backup plan, while you tested other options. You thought I'd be here waiting forever. I love you." "No, Jessica. You love the security I represent. But real love doesn't test, doesn't seek comparison, doesn't look for something better." She collapsed into tears. It wasn't pretty or cinematic. It was messy, mascara-running, gasping sobs that shook her whole body. Michael watched without moving from his chair. A year ago he would have rushed to comfort her. Now he felt only a distant sadness. "Please," she begged. "We can start over." I've changed too," Michael said, standing up. "And I've discovered that I don't need someone who needs to lose me to value me." Over the next few days, Jessica tried everything. She cleared her schedule to be home more. She cooked elaborate meals. She bought lingerie and tried to seduce him. She cried. She apologized. She promised to cut off all contact with Brandon, to go to couples therapy, to do whatever it took. Michael listened to it all with the calm of someone who'd already made peace with his decision. "I'm not doing this out of anger," he told her one evening. "I'm not trying to punish you or make you suffer. I'm doing this because I finally understand my worth, and I understand that I deserve someone who doesn't need to test me to appreciate me." "What does that mean?" Jessica asked, though she already knew. "It means I want a divorce." The word hung in the air like a guillotine. Jessica's face went white. "You don't mean that." "I do. Michael, please. I know I messed up, but marriages go through rough patches. We can work through this. A rough patch is stress about money or disagreeing about where to live. You had an affair, Jessica. You deliberately sought out another man, made plans with him, lied to me repeatedly, and only came back when it didn't work out. That's not a rough patch. That's betrayal." She tried to argue, to justify, to minimize. But Michael had spent weeks thinking about this moment, and he wasn't going to be swayed by tears or promises. He'd already contacted a lawyer. He'd already opened a separate bank account. He'd already started looking at apartments. This wasn't an impulsive decision made in anger. This was the most clear-headed choice he'd ever made. 3 months later, Michael sat in a coffee shop in downtown Austin alone. Not lonely, alone by choice. The divorce had been quick. No fights over assets. He just wanted his peace back. Jessica had tried to contact him several times. Long messages, elaborate apologies, promises. He responded politely but distantly. There was no resentment, just indifference. He looked through the coffee shop window and saw his reflection. The man he used to be, the one who sought approval, who molded himself to please others, had been left behind. In his place was someone stronger, more confident, more at peace with himself. Michael had lost 15 pounds of fat and gained 10 pounds of muscle. He'd finished the first version of his app and was in talks with potential investors. He'd reconnected with old friends and made new ones. He'd started therapy to work through the betrayal and understand his own patterns in relationships. He'd even gone on a few dates, nothing serious, but it felt good to be appreciated again. The hardest part hadn't been letting go of Jessica. It had been letting go of the future he'd imagined with her, the kids they'd planned to have, the house they'd talked about buying. Growing old together, all those dreams had died, and grieving them had been painful. But in their place, new dreams had emerged. Dreams that were his alone, not dependent on anyone else. And there was freedom in that. His phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, a graphic designer he'd met at a networking event last week. Just a simple invitation to check out a new art gallery opening Friday night. No pressure. Michael smiled and typed back that he'd love to. He put his phone away and returned to his book. But before he did, he let a thought escape in a low voice, as if speaking to his old self. She tested me to see if there was someone better out there. And that's when I discovered that someone was me, just without her. And for the first time in a very long time, Michael felt he was exactly where he should be, free. The coffee shop around him buzzed with life. People typing on laptops, students studying, couples on first dates. The world kept spinning, indifferent to his personal revolution. But Michael had learned something valuable through his pain. The only person who needed to believe in him was himself. Jessica had taught him that lesson, though not in the way she'd intended. She'd tested him, pushed him, betrayed him, and in doing so, she'd forced him to find a strength he didn't know he had. As he watched the Austin sunset paint the sky orange and purple through the window, Michael raised his coffee cup in a silent toast. To new beginnings, to self-discovery, to the man he'd become. She'd wanted to know if there was someone better. Now they both knew the answer.
Subscribe to the channel. It's easy and fast.